So we have
Hmm.
uh, the a way to use a high quality camera that connects up to a Raspberry Pi. But this is just an example. So that's this board right here. Has a 12 megapixel camera, and then you can put a nice lens on it. And there's a whole slew of choices for that, ranging from wide field to narrow focus, narrow telephoto cameras.
12
So
megapixel. Okay. All right.
yep. So we get a good high resolution picture. You have a lot of weatherization abilities. We've talked about that for something that could be outdoors, at least, continuously for some time.
hmm.
Um, and I struggled a lot with just getting the basic stuff to work. I finally found a track from the 3D printing community for turning that into a webcam. So you can have these cameras connected to your Pi, and then they serve it, and they just show up as a webcam for your computer, or for, in our case, our Raspberry Pi base station.
Oh,
So
that's very cool. So someone wrote the code already. They cut the
they
code.
wrote the code. I'm just
Yeah.
finding it, and now I started
Right.
this morning. I started last night, and then continuing this morning
Yeah.
to put that into practice.
Hmm.
So that gives us, another way to get to, high quality image data,
Sure.
and without, I think some of the challenges you had with setting up the initial system. And Gordon, Bart had the same thing.
Right.
It's like, well, let's make this a lot easier. So that's part of my push right now, is to be able to install or deploy a system as rapidly as we can,
Hmm.
and make it usable without a lot of technical work at each site. So
That's great.
I think that's the big piece right now for us, is to um, get that solid so that we can actually put these into play and have them gathering data for us, and then as we start to develop the models for finding things out.
Yeah, that'll be the fun part. But first, we of course need the thing to work
Yeah,
reliably. Yeah.
yep.
Yeah.
So there's this vast community of people out there who've done great things, and we're kind of putting together a number of those pieces so that we can add in our version of the great thing.
Yeah, one example would be like, doing math or physics problems, right?
Mhm.
For kids. And, I could meet each kid and show them. And that was 2017 when I was a high school teacher. But then
Mhm.
I created a video for them where they could share the methodology. And I just said, instead of doing it like, just use this model, monkey see, monkey do, and just repeat this, right?
Mhm.
These 5 questions, and I, of course, varied the questions so that they could learn that skill, and then they're now good, right? Now,
Yeah.
let's take that, right, and talk about changing out a junction box, right?
Mhm.
Okay, junction
Great.
box, and what happens if you don't turn off the electricity, the circuit, and other things? All right, what will happen? And then people, all those junction box viewers, right? If you have the right keywords, they're going to view this stuff, right? So
Mhm.
that video I showed you about the insects eating and devouring a sick zombie plant
Yep.
versus the same plant next to it, and they're not interested. Like what? And people who have that problem are going to watch it. So what's going to happen now is our camera system is going to have all these feeds because it's enabling them to learn the skills they want versus, okay, if I describe the physics problem, or I describe the junction box, right?
Yeah.
Then you
Mhm.
only get so far. And I think that the visual learning, right, teaching, and of course having great sound begins with how you discovered. I'm just going to grab my camera here that you sent me, this one, right? This,
Great. Yep.
yeah, this one was great. I mean, the fact that we achieved this, this was like going this is the beginning of the barbaric age, the stone age. But you
Right.
now have something in we want to get to the space age very quickly. So I left you guys for a few weeks just to see what was going on, and then
Mhm.
I'm glad to see the progress. This is great. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
And I actually I have in a box here, I've got higher resolution cameras, and they're always coming out with better and better capabilities. And so we have this broad spectrum to choose from. But
Hmm.
that first step, that's a big one, right?
Yeah,
And I think it just blocks most everybody else. So if we can solve that, reasonably, then we can work on the next step, right? So we can get it up to the point of really impacting people.
that's right.
I'm reminded I talked maybe, it's at least 10 years ago, 15 years ago,
Hmm.
with a teacher. This is back when we were just getting a really interesting curve of improvement in computers and video, and we saw Khan Academy. Going back to your teaching example,
Hmm.
Khan Academy was coming along, and I approached a teacher at my children's school who I thought would be receptive to this, and so it wasn't the right time for him, right? And what he told me was we didn't really like the idea of separating the human person from the classroom. And I said, well, my point is that this is stuff that a person can pursue on their own. It's individualized pursuit of education that wouldn't supplant the classroom, but it would augment it. And he was just like, no, I really he was a teacher. He was a born, to the core
Right.
teacher, and he
Yeah.
really wanted to do that. So it was not a good match for him.
No,
But,
it's and to your point, it's about the relevancy, right? What you
yeah.
did was you made him think, "Oh my goodness, what am I going to do?" Right?
Hmm.
And what you do need to do, right, if anybody's going through that, is you need to be edutaining as opposed to educating, right? So if you can make it entertaining, then you just took the Khan Academy video and you take it to that next level, right? So when
Hmm.
I was a chemistry teacher, I showed people how to make explosions, right? To show
Yeah.
them what a combustion is. You can't show that on the video, right? Because
Hmm.
this is stuff you can't do at home.
Yeah.
So so it's like if for those who can elevate themselves, that message from Khan Academy should tell you one day this is coming, and you should be doing things that prevent it. I'll give you. We'll use that example as all the people working at Facebook and Google and all, they started really feeling it once they found someone was fired. But where it really happened was when Elon bought X, right? Bought Twitter and turned it into X and fires all these people. He showed that that can be done. Right?
Hmm.
And I'm sure a lot of CEOs, I mean, that's what you learn in business school is to fire people. And what happens if you're fired? Well, here's the problem when you're fired is that if it's just you, then you'll find something else, and it
Hmm.
wasn't you. But if it's a trend, then having a home in San Francisco or a major city, Seattle, and you have a mortgage that doesn't stop, right? And since you
Right.
had that $200,000 salary, you took out the maximum you can with a mortgage, and
Hmm.
now, but if you could only view that experience as that's training for you to
Hmm.
try to like learn how to downsize as opposed to when you need to downsize or you don't need as much house by that time, right? You're not going to, right? You're not going to be able to do it unless you save. But the whole antithesis to, okay, if I save all my money, I put all of it away, all my disposable income into my 401k, then I didn't have any money when I was growing up, and you fall into, or when you need, you could actually put your retirement to such a level, sock away your savings, so that now you're in the poverty class,
Great.
right? So now let's say you're in the poverty class for 30 years, and then you retire and you say, oh, I have all this money. But when you get to 70, if how you got to poverty was also that you didn't eat well, I mean, if you took it to the extreme where you just ate very minimally, like $5 a day, no more than that, by the time you get there, you can't afford to have the steak or the nice things because it'll kill you instantly. So you have to, right? It's not just doing one extreme or the other. Teaching is supposed to tell you like, how do you elevate this, right? And
Hmm.
one of the elevations is so that the kids know how to do the physics problems. They know how to do the calculus. Calculus has been around for 400 years.
Right.
Our algebra has been around for 4,000 years. Arithmetic in many forms has been around for 20,000 years. So if your goal is I get high by not having my students know what to do and they look at me as their leader, you got to get rid of that immediately because That is not what your job is as a teacher. Your job as a teacher is to elevate them so that they can equip themselves to such a level that as we evolve, as AI comes about, I saw a robot on the UPenn campus and I filmed that. It's learning how to walk, right? If you're still thinking like, let me use my school to help me get a job. There's no job waiting for you from your schooling, right? You have got to prepare yourself, right? And it's more of a survival, thriving mindset that the teacher has to have for the
Hmm.
student, right? But yes, to your point, a video camera though, a good one with high res and ability to go into chat GPT and other things, other GPT systems, and to tell you and inform you. I mean, something as simple as what kind of mail do I have in my mailbox? What
Right.
kinds? Right. So I
Yep.
go there, would
Mhm.
blow away all the signaling devices that tell me you've got mail. All right.
Right.
That's great. I've got mail. I want to know what kind of mail, right?
Mhm.
And I gave that talk on nanotechnology, right? Recently I gave a talk and I said, it's great that we know that nano helps. That's 10 to the minus ninth. That's
Mhm.
billionaire level. 10 to the sixth power would be millionaire level, right? So when we look at billionaire level, um, what's the next level above billionaire? And I introduced something called a quadrillionaire. And that's
Okay.
taking a million multiplied by a billion. But we don't understand what that is because that doesn't exist around here. So what you look at is on the nanotechnology, if you were to take it and become more and more specific, because the benefits that we've reaped from going that small is if you actually went smaller by a million times smaller, you'd reached femto level.
Mhm.
And femto construction and femto surgery and femto healing, no one knows what that is, right? But they understand what nanos. I said, multiply that by a million in the denominator, and you'll understand what that is, right? So then, you teach the kids, and then you say, well, that's just being more and more infinitesimally accurate. And then we can perhaps, as human beings, start looking at the shapes. Is it a rod? Is it a sphere? Is it a square? Is it a diamond? And how these shapes fit together? Because when you can do that, you'll have things that can do things for humanity, like go to space and other place beyond, right? But if you just group think and learn, all right, first grade, sixth grade, this is what it is, and then we give
Mhm.
you an award, you're valedictorian. Well, guess what? At the other high school, they also have valedictorian. And for the past 400 years, at every high school, right, they give out valedictorian status. And what does that mean? That doesn't mean that you can figure out the extreme issues that are going to happen for humanity. You're not gonna be able
Right.
to solve them. And so there is a classic video of a guy who goes into he reaches $4 million in savings. He actually publicly shares to people. He's got 10,000 subscribers right now. He went to an Ivy League. He doesn't share which Ivy League, and he's
Mhm.
living in his Tesla. He develops all these white hairs all over his hair, but he's living there and he goes to these charging stations so he can live for free. And then
Yep.
every month he splurges on a Michelin star restaurant, and he just wants to see that extreme, right? And there's
Sure.
many ways to achieve extremes, right? But that, if a Ivy League saw that, they would start changing the rules and making it even harder for people like him to not be able to get into an Ivy League because you don't have any contribution now. You're just taking care of yourself. And congratulations for going to all these things, but humans need other humans to dedicate and to achieve more. Elon Musk needs people in SpaceX that are not the ones that train to do Guitar Hero, right?
Mhm.
Let's just do Guitar
Sure.
Hero, right? We need to have purpose and impact. And so with what we're doing here, it allows the teacher who wants to really teach and elevate others as opposed to self-serving to take it to the next level. And we're kind of neutral, but at the same level where, because of who and the people we are, I would say I would never want to be just living in a Tesla and be, he quotes it as homeless, right? um that's like taking the backpack experience to Europe, which a lot of kids do, and
Mhm.
just saying, let me do that for 20 years, right? Or
Mhm.
10 years. a little bit is one thing. Now, taking it to that level, right? And we're going to lose people because we didn't teach their hearts. All we did was we gave them targets, goals to set. And I say setting goals is probably one of the worst things you could do um, to um, to prevent yourself from going to a limitless level, right? Because you reach the goal and you say, all right, we had our goal, we had the camera, and then we said, and you said, you were showing me that, and I said, that is great. I was clapping in my heart saying, Pete, you are taking it because without that, right? Look at the Ring cameras. They suck. Right?
Hmm.
They don't do anything. And then I couldn't quite make out whether the raccoon, what it was doing, right? I'm saying, like, this is Amazon. So what
Right.
we're setting ourselves up for is we could be an acquisition, it could be a number of followers. Is how do we learn to do it this way, right? I never
Right.
asked you, do you have kids, Pete?
Yeah, I do.
Oh,
Yeah, mine are the early 20s. They're out of
oh,
school,
oh, great.
working.
Yeah.
My daughter's working. My son is searching for that first job.
Hmm.
But he's working to support himself. So
Yeah, well, this is I say the other half of life that teaches you all things is when you have children, you start seeing that, all right, I can't control them with my hands. I
hmm.
might control them with my voice, or once upon a time we beat them, or we Puritans had public shaming. But but we have to let them discover and realize, and then that humbling moment is you say, "Wow, someone did that for me too," right?
Right.
And that is where I think when we show what our camera is able to do
Hmm.
is to have, I mean, family people, that's who we are, and we want to just have greater clarity in seeing what is going on. And clarity meaning, yes, visual clarity, but also by having the AI, we will be able to, like, let's say there's a roof leak somewhere or something is not feeling well. All those repeat images, what do you mean without me having to spend all the hours looking at the camera? And
That's
I
right. Yeah.
think this is turning into what you've done. It will allow us to I mean, this will explode.
Yeah.
Exponentially.
That's
Yeah.
that's
Mm.
our goal.
Yes.
Let's ride that and let's make something really useful for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think with the cost of what you're describing, I mean, one of the things I'd love to do with my girls one day is to teach them how to use a real knife to cut wood, right?
Yeah.
And then they'll build their own bird feeder. Well,
Yep.
once you have a bird feeder, there's all kinds of feeders out there, but this bird feeder with this camera system would allow you to almost have all the details about the bird, right? It'll
That's right.
tell you this bird and the other bird. They're both blue jays, but they're not exactly the same. How do we
Hmm.
know it's not the same? Well, the camera tells you this is not that one. And
Right.
people who spend a lot of time with their pets and animals, wildlife experts, they can tell one bear from the other. They can tell one thing. This camera will make people an expert, basically.
Right.
This
Yeah.
is fun.
That's right.
Very cool.
Good. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm up to is really
Great.
just trying to get more cameras into our tool set.
Hmm.
And then we're working on the generating the next framework for deploying some models which will do the recognition and then some, answer questions.
Great. All right. Yeah, I'm glad we didn't start shooting all those videos before we got to this because now when we do it, it'll be much better.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Okay. Great.
Good.
All right.
So, what are you up to nowadays? I did see a couple of videos from you. You're doing some neat stuff. Did that speech at the that you mentioned before, is that available
Oh,
for
about
viewing?
the scientific and unscientific. No, I don't always have. I mean, I don't always film them.
Yeah.
I am. One update is I am the women's facilitator at Wharton Circle. And yeah, I think I'm one of the few men, if not the only man. And people ask me, like, one of the first questions these successful women will ask me, like, why are you doing this? And I said, because I want to know how it is to be a successful woman.
Hmm.
And I have two girls and I have a wife. And I also want to live for 200 years. So the way to do it is to get my mind on traversing into the future, right?
Mhm.
There's a video that I wanted to take, I took, but I didn't post it. It's a video at Penn where it's a universal bathroom. So the men and the women go to the same bathroom.
Sure.
And what was incredible is I'm with my daughter and I'm now able to bring them to a universal bathroom. However, what I noticed from my medical background is nobody's cleaning these toilets, right? And there's
Ah,
fewer toilets and the volume, right? And there's people coughing and people are sick and somebody doing number two and others doing number one. But the volume and the frequency is so high that I think that's the sign of the next outbreak. Probably like if I put that out there, you'd see like a lot of views. But I said, I don't really I didn't feel I asked myself, I don't feel like putting it out there yet. But yeah, I mean, it's a day in the life of, right? Like I as a scientist, one of the hard things is not working for someone else scientifically, right? And
mhm,
it's saying goodbye to your boss. That happened
mhm.
at Merck, it happened at Pfizer, and then saying I'm going to believe enough in myself that I can independently do this, right?
Great.
Well, your biggest audience are all these entrepreneurs and other people, and that you didn't need to like all the benefits you get from when you don't, right? When you don't follow that path is that you now have all this time to focus, right? And then people will say, how do you focus? Well, by not focusing, you will learn how to focus because what are you going to do every day when you wake up, right? It's not time to die yet, right? It's not time to get sick yet. It's not time for any of those other excuses. So you get yourself busy. It's been helpful for me to take on various tasks, right?
Sure.
And I will, and then you learn to be patient because like I so much wanted 5 weeks ago to say, oh, let's get here, or actually a year ago to be here, but you appreciate that evolution takes time.
Yeah.
You need others to get to that realization that what we can possibly do versus if I pushed it, right? Then the outcome would be different. So so I do this with graduate students and postdoctorals is my goal isn't to give you more time or to give you a tool that shrinks down. My goal is to raise your awareness on how to realize. Once you realize what you could do, you could
Mhm.
then do things in shorter time or longer time. It's not about the amount of time, it's
Right.
about the realization. So, realization is not an independent variable, but time is. So, if you can change your realization, it's like someone wanting to save money, they could realize that they need to do it, right?
Mhm.
Versus someone who realizes, oh, it's not going to matter anyway. And then, so the realization process is a process, right? So I
Right.
teach that
Yeah.
at various places, and then I sometimes show some videos internally. The trip that I had with my friend in Montana, where she came and visited me, uh,
Mhm.
I've already known about Montana 10 years ago, but she saw me eating all these wild animals, right?
Mhm.
She would bring wild animals to me and I would eat them. Um, and um, and my fondness of them you
Mm.
could not describe, the energy you get from eating wild elk, right?
Mm.
But seeing that I did it, right? And then the energy, and over and over again, it piqued her curiosity. So one day she'd come visit me. We're gonna do another group is gonna visit me in Canada, in March,
Okay.
and then by April I have to get down to Virginia. So it's gonna be there's some travel, and then I usually bring my kids with me. So people who saw the video got a chance to see my kids with
Great.
this actress and it's all in part of getting my daughters um to get to a point where they can go to China.
Ah,
We're taking little steps, right? China,
sure.
Hong Kong, Singapore, all of Southeast Asia. Um, so if I didn't homeschool them, right? I wouldn't be able to do it. And I describe to people it's almost like putting flooring down and then putting the wood pieces, right? So it's flush. Versus
Yeah.
if you put the wood pieces and then now you have to put the floor in, it'll never, right? So there's a sequence
Yeah.
of advantages to not to not have that sequence or the realization, then it could be upside down. So when I was looking at homeschooling, people said, "What about the socialization?" And I said, you're right. They won't be able to socialize with anybody at their age or the teachers. And my conclusion was that's a good thing because I was a teacher. Exactly because there was always teachers, usually not one or two, but many of them who, if you showed them the Khan Academy, they would become defensive, right? Right. And it is in the
Right.
attitude of the defensive is what if my girls wanted to learn scientific notation at fourth grade? But the teacher's viewpoint, kind of like this Khan Academy thing, is that you should only learn scientific notation when you're in eighth grade.
Hmm.
What would happen, right? Well, then for the next, they would become stunted based on whether it's their fears or their vision of whether or not it's right. When I went down to Florida and Georgia and North Carolina, that was 40 days.
Hmm.
So you take a 40-day vacation, right? Is it
Yeah.
is it a vacation? No, by no means. They went into all these science places, right? And
Yeah.
other places so that they're learning inside the museums. What is the purpose of school anyway? It's to get you to a point where you can learn on your own,
Right.
right? And
Yeah.
unfortunately, that system is so powerful. Like in one of the definitions of upper middle class is that they're educated, right? So then they spend the time on the education and they funded the monster, right? So then, if until you realize that, do you know how to look for code um that's already been written, right? Or are
Right.
you just gonna keep working on how
Yeah.
to write the code? Can I come up with the code, right? No,
Yeah.
don't do that, right? It's already been done, right? There's a
Yeah.
better way to do the algebra,
Hmm.
and it might not be your teacher, right?
Right.
Yeah, so that's how I view it is that there's a better way to do kindergarten when you're not at the age of kindergarten, right?
Hmm.
Let's say you're 40 years old and you do kindergarten. I ran into that at Wharton and Harvard. That's what they were doing at the executive level. In addition to all the wonderful things you learn, is that you're learning to be with others. And this time, can you really be friends? Right. So I describe it as the difference between a great wine and a sour wine is the year, but also how the grapes interact. You can't just like, let me shove more grapes and we'll get a great wine.
Hmm.
That just doesn't work, right? So yeah, there's um there's some interference with my camera. Like I think I have to clean the attachments because if I touch my desk, it'll go to no camera.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. So it's I think with any kind of connection, there's always right. There's
sure.
always dust or some kind of resistant particle that
Yeah.
gets in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh.
Now, the image on this, I don't know if you're talking about this particular camera that we're seeing you on, but it's
Yeah.
been rock solid all morning.
Yeah, yeah, but I just have to like tap somewhere. I there was a
Okay.
one blip. Maybe you didn't quite look at the screen
No,
where
missed it.
it was far and few between. But yeah, there is this is a Logitech Mevo camera. I think I showed you that before
Yeah,
with
that's right.
tracking and all, but it doesn't have the resolution. Same thing with yours. I don't know what camera yours is, but your webcam when you were showing me the 12 megapixel,
Yeah.
it didn't focus, right? Didn't focus.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm
Will we
using.
have focusing ability? Will it have in the software?
So that'll depend on the lens.
Yeah.
So for the
Right.
moment, right now, I've got our manual focus lenses.
Right.
The autofocus ones, they look more fragile, and so I thought I'd let me master just getting something
Right.
that is decent, and then
Right.
then we can add in the zooming and focus ability
Right.
afterwards.
Okay. Great. Great. Yeah.
Yeah, all of the things. So one of the things I've learned over many years is that everything mechanical that you introduce into a solution is going to fail.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
It-
more
it-
junction boxes, right? The
yeah,
lights now flickering.
yeah,
Right.
that's right.
Yeah.
Every additional piece that you have past hardwired, soldered down stuff does fail. Even soldered down stuff does. You have to watch that. So the awareness of that is why I've stayed away. But I do have some next things that are on my list, which includes some motion. like
Mm.
that.
Oh, great, great, wonderful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the pan tilt stuff, and then pan tilt zoom focus would be, the kind of next logical steps again as we're going to make this stuff applicable to more and more interesting applications.
Hmm. Okay,
Good.
great, excellent.
Well, I think I'm that's about what I have for the moment. I'm gonna keep working on this, and I'll share it out. I think my goal will be in a matter of weeks, maybe by the end of the year, we'll have a definition that we can send out some more cameras, and start putting them into practice, for some of this, and we can kind of see, hey, yeah, here's a sufficient thing, just like the little camera module you showed. That's good for some really basic stuff, right? But if you want to get to something more discriminating, that some of the new AI models will help us to work against. I suspect we'll have a variety of different image sources.
Yes, great, great. Yeah,
Enough. Well, I guess have a great weekend, and enjoy the. I hope the weather out where you are is good. I know some of the people
incredible.
around here are still cleaning up from a weather storm last week.
Yes, I heard.
We were spared. Um,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
So
an.
my friend, he
Hi,
lives in
Pushkar.
Seattle.
Hi.
Hi. Hi. Yeah, so I was here for the
Yeah.
meeting.
Hi,
So
Pushkar.
hi. Yeah. So my friend lives in Seattle as well. His name is Ron Howe. He's my colleague at my company as well. So he didn't have power for I think 3 or 4 days. So
Yeah,
yeah, hopefully, yeah, everything is back to normal.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fortunate thing is that our temperatures are only in the low 50s,
Right.
for here, so it's not too bad. If it was Minnesota, this would be quite a bit rougher.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So good enough.
Yeah, and just like update from my side as well. So I'm working on like the image upload system. Like once we have an image from the camera, we want those images onto the AWS so that we can do stuff with the images.
Great. Nice.
Working on those on the software side. So hopefully, yeah. Last week was really busy, very tough at my work. It's Thanksgiving, and I had to do some deliverables. But yeah, got through that. So have some free time now.
Good. Good. That's kind of where I'm at, is I've got a lot of vacation kept carried over through the course of the year. So I have only partial work weeks here for a couple more, and then I'm out. So I'm gonna really enjoy my time off of the payday work, into the fun work here.
Yeah, cool.
That's great. I'm gonna share with you guys sometimes. Can you give me sharing so I can show you this?
Hmm.
Yeah. So I get all kinds of things sent to me, but here is one that's pretty nice. It's home price to income ratios, right?
Mm.
So they provide a visualization of well, this you could get most house, and this you get least amount of house, and
Yeah.
somehow how we get there is that everybody chooses to collectively group mindset to go here, all right? Hawaii,
Hmm.
California, but you look at Montana and you say, well, that's interesting, right? Certainly you would not expect that to be 6.6,
Yeah.
right?
Ah.
And then where Washington is, right? So this you might start thinking, oh, it's the Pacific Northwest, because when you think about where Montana is, right, it's actually over here. So
Mhm.
more people prefer, and then you take this visualization, more people prefer West Coast,
Mm.
no, Northwest, right? Northwest, West Coast,
Mhm.
than East Coast, right? And then most people don't prefer the Midwest, right? Midwest. And
Right.
so yeah, nobody wants to be in the middle. Right. So yeah, this becomes really interesting for you to see, right? And if you're stuck here, where would you want to go, right? Going to Nevada or Oregon, more people go up than go to the middle. So
Right.
visualizations, right, help a lot, right?
Mhm.
Because it changes how you look at something, right? And and you guys know I have the academy, so with the teaching, and so this is what here is a slide deck around the traditional learning model, right?
Hmm.
Our students are bored. All right, let me see if I can get you a one where okay, that's good. All right, so they're kind of bored, and this is defined by the French word ennui, a feeling of listlessness and dissatisfaction arriving from a lack of occupation or excitement. He succumbed to ennui and despair, right? So that's
Hmm.
traditional education, conventional. Now, what I'm working on is what if we changed how we learn? Our current teaching style is antiquated, and what if we excited one's imagination together? We'd shape thinkers who redefine the future, right? And this is Dr. Wholesome Mirth Academy, right? Is to talk about the interface between the moon and the earth, right? As one subset of what you could do, right? So
Hmm.
you could get to the right, right? And then, so this is Mirth Academy, igniting minds, shaping futures where curiosity meets purpose. So I do a lot of for profit, as you know, startups, but this is a nonprofit, right? That would empower young thinkers for $60 a year to $5 a month to come and experience some change.
Okay.
So very inexpensive. And if you had you just wanted a lifetime membership, you could pay $1,000 and you're permanently in. So
Okay.
very low barrier of entry. I don't
Hmm.
usually do things for the masses, but this is a mass situation that requires. So if you look at the key is the window, all right? The window, you look at a window and you don't usually see that in Windows, right? So and then you look at the classroom and you see the engagement, but it's always referring back to the window. You see that in the slides, right?
Hmm.
And then so here, age matters. Did you know that Mozart composed music by the age of 5? Many people do that. Sixth graders are formidable years where a young child sees possibilities. But what are they seeing every day in the traditional model? They're seeing limits, right? They're being taught you can't learn this when you're this age. You have to wait until this to learn calculus, right? And then calculus in the 400 years, maybe we can't afford to do it this way. So opening up to the door, up to the door to possibilities, right? So you open up, your child is exposed to ideas that let them create a new future. Now, why is this important for even what we do? Is imagine they see a camera like this, right? That's like giving like fire to monkeys, and then all right, well now let's give you something beyond fire, the magnifying glass. Oh,
Hmm.
you can make fire on a sunny day. So open up the possibilities, right? And then generating new opportunities. Now, if I were a corporation, I would want people to come and quit school and learn everything in the corporation, but I can't guarantee I won't fire them, right? With this, I'm not a corporation. I want to create a network, right, where we have network effects, where you look out the window and you actually see this, right? And everybody brings something new they see, and that's where it would become very unique, right? So, and, we're working on this, but why dark oxygen matters? Here's an example of it: is if oxygen can be created on the ocean floor, which is a fact now, with no sunlight, then maybe much of what we have learned can also be redefined. When
Okay.
I, and Pushkar, we went to high school, they told us that oxygen is created by sunlight hitting the plants, photosynthesis, and that's it. Subsequently affected how when we one day got to NASA or other places, we would remember that now would almost like limit us, right? That knowledge limits us. Well, dark oxygen has already been discovered. It's a fact now, but they're not teaching this in schools because they're behind, right? So imagine a kid looking through a window and now sees the dark oxygen and what it's going through, right? And
Hmm.
then what I'm tasked with, this is a separate thing, is can we combine rare earths with graphene, right? Could you do that? No one has done it. I haven't done it because when I was funded with $80 million, we focused on making shoes that contain graphene or other sports equipment or other things
Hmm.
that have been around for ages. Rare earth graphene has not been around. So this will be a new material. So some things that I'm involved with, like what we're doing with the camera, could be brought in into these types of organizations, the organization I'm currently creating, and allowing them to look at it very differently. We'll have monthly
Okay.
calls, we'll have monthly educational newsletters, quarterly, but to put it at $5 a month, it's still out of reach for some countries, actually, right?
Hmm.
Still be out. So we want to create a movement. That's that those are certain cameras where you don't need even screens anymore, right? This is
Right.
you go into the 3D world. Innovations shape our world. Imagine them. They have all this energy. We're the problem on the other side, but we're the ones that we are like us or giving. We could provide this visionary leadership. Now, David Goldsmith is a globalist and entrepreneur, so he's the one who created the nonprofit Mirth. But Mirth Academy is something I'm working with them. Mirth Materials is something I'm working with them. But impacting through diverse expertise, we got T. Scott Clennandell, Director of Artificial Intelligence at Gartner, right? Shire Mirza, right? He's involved in the outreach department at this research center, right? And then you
Hmm.
got Greg, who is actually Penguin Automated Systems. So, likewise, we've got Pushkar, we got Pete. We could share these generating possibilities of creating new leadership without, oh, this is your history class. Your history class doesn't have to be what your history class is at school. Shifting
Sure.
perspective, it was once believed sickness came from imbalance of humors, right? And then think of Marie Curie, who redefined science and opened doors for generations. Shifting all this quickly, because we need to be quickly, urgency. It's an urgent situation, meets our opportunity. And then so expanding the concepts of life, who we surround ourselves with, obviously, me spending, a Sunday afternoon with you guys and you likewise, it
Hmm.
changes your perspective, right? Contributions for options right here. Now, these are the annual contribution, $5 a month. Lifetime is 1,000, right, for students. Here's the tax exempt federal ID. So it's all been structured right. But then the model, how do you take the model to a whole nother level, the interconnectedness and the academy is a place for innovators, right? But what about for those who want to join us, right? And contribute beyond this, right? It allows them, I'm trying to find okay, here, sponsorship. So Mirth Patron Circle allows you to contribute $250,000, right? And become a patron at $250,000, that's a tax write-off,
Hmm.
right? These are all tax write-offs. And these individuals will be able to have lifelong, even if you're $10,000 off, which allows you to shift back down into another bracket, gives them the ability. So this is a very different approach of how this nonprofit could also be useful for our startup here, right?
That's right.
Yeah, yeah. So I wanted to make sure you knew that why are we doing this? For your future generations, redefining tomorrow. Join us as we redefine what it means to educate future generations. At Mirth Academy, students aren't just learning about change, they're learning how to create it through collaboration, creativity, and curiosity. We invite you to be part of a journey where education transcends borders, propelling students towards a sustainable, multi-planetary future. Now, that's what I'm doing with Dr. Holson's Academy on many levels, right? So when you go to DW Prep, what happens? You got the research, you got the Wholesome's Academy, but when you go in here, and then if you were to look at the testimonials, most people want to learn about like they want their SAT scores, right? Their ACT scores, and then so you can see in the reviews, I tutored them, right? They have first name, last name, so there's no secrets. We don't believe in privacy within within our cohorts, right? Because we need to know who we are, right? And the parents and others will write, right? They say I was a tutor, but obviously because they don't, Khan Academy doesn't work. Um, but why doesn't Khan Academy work, right? It's not enough to show someone the moves, right? You have to show them the passion and you have to be with them, you have to spend time with them. And so
Right.
that is what the teacher should have answered, right? But they weren't answering that way. They were saying, "Oh no, oh, that's not," and you're not socializing when you are teaching to the middle. So I
Hmm.
call it praying and spraying, right? To our very first slide here.
Yeah.
Then they're of course experiencing this. They're wondering, as they should, why am I locked up all this time listening to you tell me what and how I should write um, a book, how I should write and express, and you call it expository writing. But have you written any books? Have you done anything? You haven't. it's an honest question, right? Have you done anything? And Mirth Academy is about all those who have done things. You've actually survived. You and Bart, you've survived corporate America. Yeah.
Right.
And in a time when, the Trump is talking about and with now the Department of Government Efficiency, right? Doge, they're talking about cutting down government expenditures, which at some point, right, we that will come. What happens to Washington, D.C. now? Right? When we were looking at the pie chart of this, right, home price to
Mhm.
income ratios, what we need is, okay, how many of these are affected by government employees, right? And then how much is affected by by corporate, right? And what types of corporate? So I don't think that DC, right? I don't think DC is like in the pink, so it's not so bad here. But remember, if you pull out 300,000 plus federal employees, what happens to DC now? Right. So if you were a business owner, you're something like that. So, right. And then what happens? There's
Sure.
problems on the black side, but there's also problems where if it's lit, but how it's lit. If it isn't lit by something that's truly diversified and it's being lit a certain way because it's over tilted in a certain way. Like, I mean, while Hawaii and California are both black, I'm sure that some of this is driven by corporations. If they start, with AI cutting down, because that's the whole goal of AI, right? The efficiency, cutting down on employees, then I think Hawaii might not suffer the same consequence unless Hawaii is high because people here want to also buy something in Hawaii, right? But if it's a correlated result, that's different than something that's uncorrelated. So one of the things we will be able to do on our software is look at correlated and uncorrelated. We'll start being able to see those things and see patterns, and that will be. I mean, to take someone anybody at any level to give them that capability on a camera, they and the data, this is going to be really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think you can have a good discussion about, what will some of the effects of AI techniques and, the developing capabilities there bring to even corporate world. Because if you are in a place, I think the bottom line will be efficiency and effectiveness are the outputs of these tools and these techniques. So if you're in a corporate situation where your addressable market is maxed out, efficiency then helps you reduce your costs, become more profitable. If
Hmm.
you're if you are in a situation which is where I see a lot of stuff where your total addressable market is very large relative to what you're currently addressing, then the efficiency gains and the effectiveness gains makes it possible for you to address more of that with the same resources, right? So I'm really, yeah, there's going to be some immediate impacts on for places that are not able to scale out who they're reaching and what customer base that they're reaching. That's already happening, like you said, the thousands of tech jobs that have been affected by that. But a lot of the places that I'm looking at, it's like there's just unmet needs that we can't get to because it takes a certain number of hours per of labor in the design side to make something new. So that's where I'm looking at. This is going to help us in so
Yes.
many ways, right? So you always have to have that perspective, right? It's a short-term, long-term view here. We
Right.
have so much to do, and I think you mentioned it, a phrase that I like a lot, which is looking at it from a multiplanetary perspective.
Yeah.
That's really what we're trying to do, right? We have so many people, only so many people,
Right.
and now we want to achieve much more.
Because we
So.
can. I mean, that you pick hard things because you can. And
Yeah.
so here's another one that I mean, how often it would be nice if we had time to explore this, right? There are these kinds of things happening everywhere. right?
Hmm.
And so by spending time, I mean that's what we are doing with a startup. It's this, except it's not as simple as this, right? So
Right.
by doing that, you suddenly create, right, like I have all these conversations, right? Whether it's WhatsApp or they're all happening at the same time, right? And you get to go in this. That's how you need to be able to know what your where your core values are, right?
Hmm.
And if you look at the glass half empty, that's that's one way. You look at the
Right.
glass half full, that's another way. But I say, what's in the glass? Right. So it's just like, right, that's going to determine whether I want one or the other answer. And there's make the most use of your time, right? I always tell my kids, don't waste time, but
Right.
it's from a perspective of awareness is look at what you could do if you became aware of what you could have if you didn't waste time. If you just allowed it to just fester, right? Then you don't, right? There's, I think, a very famous example of someone who's a janitor who saved $8 million by the time he retired. And he was
Hmm.
a janitor. But how did he do it, right? There's always a method, right? It couldn't have been easy because he's, low wages, right? And but he did it by riding the blue stock wave, right?
Hmm.
And people who read that will say, let me follow exactly what he did. And
The
then,
wrong time.
right, yeah,
He's
yeah,
at the
right.
right time, right place with the right mindset.
Yeah, if you were in the 80s and you experienced, you only need a good 10 years to fix anything, right? Or destroy anything. So if and with Nokia, they only needed, right? In 1 year, they lost 40% of their market share, focused on hardware. So what I like about what we have is we're a hardware software combination,
Hmm.
right? That is, yeah, the hardware is okay. It's not, it could always be upgraded, but our software and our people are what makes us different.
Right.
You and I could be, I mean, we're basically femto people. If you had to put an umbrella term, the femto people work on those infinitesimally small things. And we also go to the origami level as a femto scientist, where engineer, where we want to know, is it a rod? What is the shape? What is in the glass, right? That's the definition of going femto. Nano, they'll just say, let's just make it small, right? Well,
Hmm.
small what though? Right. And small can be smaller. So one of the things that people don't know about is I wanted to, when I was working on graphene, make the largest piece of graphene. But I was more interested in how small could I break graphite and still get graphene, right?
Hmm.
I found that in order to do that, the way to do it couldn't be like a deck of cards with graphite and you try to stick it or split it that way. It
Right.
wasn't the electrochemistry patent that I have. It's not that. It was actually using detonation chemistry.
Oh,
Yeah,
interesting.
I did out in the Midwest, right? Right? Nobody wants to go there. And
Hmm.
we detonated and we created this, and it was um, when graphene, which is already two-dimensional, becomes really, really small, it actually turns into a cloud. Then
Okay.
that cloud, you can actually put your hand in there. And it is so wild, right?
Hmm.
That it tends to want to come together because it's attracted to itself, but it can't
Sure.
because it's so small, so it cannot become graphite.
Okay.
Yeah, mind blowing. We actually did it
Yeah.
with a spark plug from a car, and then we basically made a homemade bomb
Hmm.
um at university level. So it
Yeah.
wasn't your homemade, but it was
Uh,
really and we used acetylene gas to do it. So that's a triple bond that we
hmm.
broke as a source of material, and out came some powerful stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
really cool.
Right. It is. It allows us to look at things from a whole another level. Now, I'm going to share with you some other things that people will ask me, right? And I might send you the recording, right? But
Hmm.
basically, this will give you a slide example of something else I do in WhatsApp, which is here, climate change is causing a pothole plague, right? And this is our robots and self-healing pavement, the solution, self-healing, right? So So that's these are articles that are coming out as of 2024, right? We've upgraded the cars, we haven't upgraded the pavements. How do we do it, right? And that's the understanding the materials.
Right.
It is in material understanding that we can transform. But this is a sign of bad material. That's what it is. If this was a good material, this wouldn't happen. And also, when this happens, how do you know that this guy isn't going to turn into, right, that one? Or
Sure.
about over here? Maybe these are there to be formed, but nobody knows.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one way, of course, is to change the traffic pattern, right? If Google Maps just didn't tell you where things are, but actually you could buy in, like let's say the municipals could buy in and say, let's give us some more time. Let's divert 30% of the traffic on an everyday level from
Hmm.
there by changing how the maps tell you where is good to go. Suddenly, all these people are now reliant on Google Maps, and Apple would suddenly just go there because they trust it, right? And
Sure.
little do they know that they can save budgets this way.
Yeah.
So I talk about that at the graduate level, and
Hmm.
that they will, and then they'll comment on things, like they'll say, so here, this one, share this with you here. This is their comment. One of their comments is that says, "Thank you, Dr. Gordon, for your comments. We'll incorporate these two important factors." Well, now suddenly what's happened is I'm now influencing the future,
Hmm.
right? Because these are at those levels where the government's reading these things. I don't put my name on them, right? I don't have to. Right?
Yeah.
I just do this, and then they get me inspired. So, but what did you do in the thing? So I said, well, I want to interface in there the urgency. So this section sets the stage by contextualizing the significance of hot mix asphalt in the changing world, right? So number one, we want the components of hot mix pavement, binder aggregates, and mixtures with attention to modern demands. This
Hmm.
is the change, right? Okay. Now, then you have effects of climate extremes on hot mix asphalt, rising temperatures, extreme weather events, and their consequences. Put that in there, right? I want you to consider the impact of electric vehicle traffic on pavements, increased load and thermal stresses from, the electric vehicles because they have the batteries, right? And then
Yep.
critical pavement distresses, a deeper dive into rutting, fatigue, and what is this? Thermal cracking exacerbated by climate extremes and electric vehicle loads. And then best
Hmm.
practicing for mitigating the stresses in this, right? Now, I want you to, and then research gap and urgency. The researchers don't know that's urgent,
Right.
right? So you got to put that in there. And then they don't understand scalability and cost-effective strategies, because then the people on the front lines won't use it. And then goals and objectives. Imagine examining the current challenges in the hot mix technologies, identifying the alternatives that address sustainability and EV adaptability, and assess feasibility, costs, and environmental trade-offs. I said, put all that in there,
Yeah.
right? And so yeah, I don't put I mean, my name will be on the final, but all of this, right? You don't, if you want to affect the future, you have to inspire these kids when they're not teenagers. When they're teenagers, they've now been cheated so much that and they're so on weeds, right? That they just don't trust adults,
Hmm.
right? But if you were their brother, and if you were their mother, and you were there so close to them, that's not what's good. If they truly love and trust and feel the love, right? That's what Mirth Academy is can I show you um what's outside of our atmosphere? Can I show you what you're missing? And if you know that's going to be the future at some level, why are you not spending 1% of your time, 1% of your investments on like our camera stuff, on these other things? Why are you not, right?
Right.
So many plants that are annuals that I grew out there, vegetables are a great example, have now turned into perennials.
Hmm.
In my garage, I've got a cricket farm. I've got mealworms because of the lizard that followed us from Florida.
Okay.
So yeah, so all these little things, right? And most people would say, well, cricket farming, crickets can't survive. That's why you go to the store and you buy them. Well, how do crickets breed? I mean, it should be pretty easy to do it out there. What are we missing when we do that? So my kids get to, they got bug guns, they got other things where they go out there and they catch. And then if you go to the pet store, they'll say, "Oh, I wouldn't feed." your lizard, your anole, something that you caught from outside, it could kill it.
Hmm.
Oh, really? That's great because we eat things from the outside. We get it from farms and other
Sure.
places. So shouldn't that kill us, right? So we have to eat lab grade food then, I guess, right? And that's where,
Mhm.
right, if you don't get the right thinking, you know how much energy would have to expend to do that? What kind of
Right.
outbreaks could come from doing that? The Amish went independent, but they use human fecal matter to grow their plants because what's your most best fecal waste? It's your own. Well, that led to outbreaks and other things, right? And then human diseases. As long as one person's sick, it already knows to adapt to you. So we have to do better. What we
Yeah.
cannot do, or we should not do, is just stifle that generation and say, you don't see. If the kids saw this, if we had what we're doing with the Barth system, I keep calling it the Bart system, but it's easier.
Hmm.
And then they saw what that could be done, right? Suddenly, um, I'm thinking of on our channel, we'll have one of these interviews, right?
Hmm.
Where they see like in a day in the life of why I'm so excited about doing this is because why wouldn't you be? Well,
Right.
why would you want to not use your time for this, right? So
Hmm.
yeah, I'm very bullish on what we have and this is great.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
All right.
Well, I do have to wrap. I
Yes.
need to get back to doing a few things, and
Yes.
very good to talk with you again. It's good to see you,
Great.
Pushkar.
Yeah, good to see you too.
Okay. Stay warm, stay dry.
Yeah, yes.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.